Good morning, everyone, and welcome to University Unitarian Church here in Seattle. We know that because we're in Seattle, but the camera is bringing this program literally all over the world, and we have someone who has been watching regularly from Tokyo, Japan. There it is. So, good morning and welcome to University Unitarian Church. My name is John Luopa. I'm the senior minister here and delighted to welcome you on this 4th of July weekend. Our special guest this morning in the service is the Reverend Sarah Schurr, who is a congregational life consultant with the Pacific Western region of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and she lives in Portland, and she has sent us both the meditation piece and her sermon electronically, so she will be on the screen, and I will cover the rest of the service. Next week, our guest will be the Reverend Bruce Davis, who I think is familiar to most of you. He and his wife Mary, very long-term members of the church, was a doctor with group health for 30 plus years, and then felt a call to ministry, became a Unitarian Universalist minister, served the church in Marysville for about 8 years, and is now fully retired, and they are living in Edmonds, and he will conduct the whole service next week, so it'll be good to have him back with us. These are the announcements that I have. There are, of course, many more on the website and here on the screen. We hope you can take advantage of those activities that meet your needs and your interests. We are slowly coming back into the building, so while our numbers aren't as full as they are, there are many watching, of course, on the live stream. And it's good to be back together in this beautiful space that all of you have worked so hard to make possible for us and for future generations. Lovely, too, to welcome Steve Cresswell back, one of our musicians this morning, and Dwight Beckmeyer and Callie Lindemeyer is going to help us with the singing and regale us with their talents. So let us begin the service this morning then with our prelude. Steve will be playing 3 of William Flaxton's pieces this morning. Flaxton was an interesting individual, 18th century, a bookseller, antiquarian books primarily in London, and was an amateur organist for about 30 years. But then I think his real heart and soul were with the viola, and he wrote lots of music for it, much of which is used as training music for violists today. So there you go. When you get a crossword puzzle, you better remember some of that stuff right there, okay? We gather today once again as a community of faith, and we come in search once again of life's meaning. Each of us knows despair, each knows exaltation, all bear burdens. We have moments of weakness and times of strength. We sing songs of sorrow and songs of love and joy. May our worship bring us strength and courage along the way, and in the presence of each other and the sacred, may we come to know our truest selves, finding a fresh impulse to love and to do good.
Please join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Great God, known by so many names, in so many different places, by so many different people, and sometimes only known by the quiet stirrings of our heart. We come today with gratitude for our lives, our precious lives, and gratitude for these religious communities where we come together to share these lives and make meaning. We also come with courage and seeking even more courage for the journey ahead. Journey into our future. Our future is people, our future is churches. The future will bring challenges. It has a lot of uncertainty, but may we find the courage and the strength to be our best selves, to build strong religion, and do so with grace and love. May it be so, my friends, and amen.
Hello, UUC friends. My name is Julie Fonslow, and I would like to tell you some of the reasons I support UUC. I think the most important reason is because our congregation offers us a chance to pursue spiritual growth in community, and from small groups that I've been involved with, including Wellspring and Covenant groups and a grief support group, to our worship services where we get comforting and challenging sermons from John and Beth, and uplifting music from Dwight and our musicians. It's all very meaningful to me, and it's become even more so during the pandemic. And I know all these things take time and money, and that's why I make a pledge every year to UUC, and I invite you to do the same. And I also invite you to join me in saying the words we say each Sunday at this time. This church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. When we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
Friends, I invite you now to stand and to sing Our first hymn, number 1018 in the teal hymnal, and if you don't have one, don't worry, the words will be here on the screen. 1018, Come and Go With Me.
Hello, fine people of University Church. I'm honored to be here with you today, even though it is only in a computer screen. I wish I could see your faces during the sermon time, but I do look forward to seeing some of your faces during the Zoom meeting after the service. I am your primary contact from the Congregational Life Department of the UUA. I'm here to serve your congregation the best I can and be your go-to person for UUA assistance and resources. I've had the chance to be in contact with some of your leadership this year, and now I get a chance to be with you this morning. I'm so glad to be here. Today, I'll share some observations about the church we're becoming as we come out of this COVID pandemic, both the technical aspects of church functioning and also the radically inclusive embrace we step into as we say how really interconnected we all are as people and as communities. Remember how it used to be we had that imagining game of what are you going to do if you ever win the lottery? Oh, we dream of all kinds of things, paying off student debt, buying a big place in the country with room for horses. Last year, we had a new imagining game. We'd all talk about what are you going to do when COVID is over? I always said my plan was to kiss my grandson right on the top of his little head with no mask on. I would go to happy hour with my girlfriends, eat in local restaurants, and go to concerts. And to travel again, so great. When I became fully vaccinated, right around Mother's Day, I did indeed go kiss my adorable grandson, and I have gone out to outdoor restaurants with friends. I've yet to be able to go to a concert. And the reason I'm with you by video today, instead of in your actual church, is because the UUA still asks that we not travel to visit congregations just yet. Too bad. I really do want to see your awesome new building. And I hope to get to preach in your physical pulpit someday in the future. We all went into lockdown in kind of a big hurry when the pandemic hit. Everyone but essential workers staying home, was a clear decision made quickly. But now we're moving forward on the other end of this. The COVID-19 pandemic is not over, to be sure. And yet things are much better. Many of us have been fully vaccinated, so are safe from serious disease. Some of us are not. Young children still don't have the opportunity to be vaccinated. The coming back process is not just the quick flick of a switch back to the old system. Most churches are finding the way to come back via a hybrid model of gathering, with some online and some in-person presence. We're finding that going into lockdown was a hard thing to do, but not a hard decision to make. Coming out is proving to be harder, as it's much more nuanced. There's so many different choices and different approaches. The church consultant, the Reverend Susan Beaumont, says going into lockdown involved decisions. Coming out requires discernments. Discernment is more complicated, takes more time. And many of us found that the last year was a traumatic time. So many of us are traumatized. It's traumatic because some of us lost friends and loved ones to this illness. And most all of the people lost the chance to celebrate Thanksgiving, Christmas, Passover, and countless other special days with people they care about during 2020 and 2021. We sorely missed gathering in our churches to sing and hug and make meaning out of our lives. People who have been traumatized sometimes have a hard time with change, with assessing risk, and with being with people again. So here we are, friends, a traumatized group of people with varied risk levels who all care deeply about one another, all wanting to do the right thing. New information comes along every day. We're all well advised to move carefully as we come back together, maintaining a sense of flexibility and a sense of hope. So yes, shutting down in-person congregational life was the right thing to do for a while. And yes, coming back to in-person activities is what we're doing now. But there is something I hear a lot that concerns me. Concerns me quite a bit, actually. I know where they're coming from, but yeah, still the concern. It's when I hear the phrase, when we go back to the way it was. The reality is we're never going back to exactly the way it was, nor should we. This experience has changed the world, and it's changed all of us. We're called to look at the lessons we learned. This challenging time has showed us some spots that need to be fixed, as well as some new skills and strengths. This pandemic time has brought forward some important learnings about our relationships with people. We don't want to go back to before we discovered these lessons. We want to carry them forward. Now, don't worry. I'm not saying the pandemic was great because we got to learn new things. I'm not going there. But if we did have to learn things, we might as well make good use of those lessons that came our way. I have some imaginings and some observations about the post-pandemic church that we're starting to grow into this summer. Some of these observations are kind of earthly and practical, like about Zoom meetings, and some I'd say are bolder and more theological. I want to talk about changes in Unitarian Universalism that have been emerging for a while, but now they've just been made so much more obvious by the COVID crisis. These are matters of social justice, anti-racism, and moving away from individualism in our communities. First, the practical. I imagine ongoing Zoom board meetings. Whee! More Zoom meetings! Same with other important committees and task groups. I know it's way harder to share snacks and hugs on a Zoom meeting. I know. And there may, of course, be in-person gatherings several times a year, but regular meetings could continue to be remote and for good reasons. Not only does this result in less driving, but it means that people with children don't need childcare to serve in important leadership positions. This is a huge asset in making leadership more accessible to more kinds of people. Just think about a church culture where every board has the I don't drive at night people, and the I work during the day people, and the my kids need to be in bed by 8 people, all working together for the good of the congregation. Could be nice. It's also clear to me that more and more UUA trainings and events will be on Zoom as time goes forward, because the UUA has learned that our carbon footprint and budget are in better shape when we do more remote gatherings and less flying around in jets and driving up and down the interstate. And when your leaders attend remote gatherings, they can meet counterparts from places like Albuquerque, Denver, San Diego. These communities also have large multi-staff churches like yours. I hope we have more events for churches like yours in the future. I imagine the way we think of our location will change. One of the things about remote worship is that you can attend services anywhere you want to. This last year, I attended worship in Missouri, Tennessee, and many, many congregations here in the West. Congregations like yours that began offering live stream services pre-COVID found that they were already attracting worshipers from all over, not just their city and state. I heard from many congregations that since COVID, members who moved away are back with them again on Sunday morning, attending remotely. You know, there are some folks who just like not having to leave the house on Sunday morning. Remote options work well for some people, certainly not for everybody, but they work well for some. One of the things we learned in our forced time of remote worship is that faraway members and friends are important to the future of our congregations. Keep them in your mind, keep them in your heart. Moving forward, they are real. They contribute time, talent, and treasure. They can feel the support of a church, and they can support others. But this calls on a change in our mindset. Who are our people? The people of this church? What is the community you serve? And who is available as a possible member? Suddenly, the idea of your location is more abstract. Maybe rather than serving the greater Seattle area, you will be serving anywhere the internet can reach, well beyond the wonderful U District. And then there are those more broad theological observations I want to share. In this period of pandemic, time has been marching on. The movement to recognize the sacred value of Black lives is strong, and it's not going away. The murder of George Floyd sparked protests all around the world. Going back to the way it was before the pandemic could also mean trying to go back in time to before the outrage we felt watching a man die with a policeman's knee on his neck. I hope we never forget that. The following storming of the Capitol that happened after the election, when that happened, it was clear we cannot be bystanders, just letting the arc of the universe bend towards justice all by itself. We live our Unitarian Universalist faith when we actively engage in the work of anti-oppression. It is our work to do. Sitting patiently, waiting and debating various theories will not build the world we wish to live in or the world we hope to leave for generations to come. This last year, we anxiously awaited the report, and it came out, the report from the UUA's Commission on Institutional Change, the group charged with providing recommendations for our UU movement on living into our goals of equity and inclusion. It is an awesome report and a good thing to read. I highly recommend it. If your church was sent a copy, you can buy a copy from the UUA bookstore, or you can read it free online at the UUA webpage. The Commission's recommendations are not about writing impassioned letters to your congressperson or even having the right kind of progressive signs hanging from your church building. No, the recommendation is about how we treat each other. Many of these recommendations address our need to struggle with our culture as Unitarian Universalists. My favorite line in the report calls on us to have covenant and commitment rather than comfort be the driving force in our congregational decisions. Wow. Covenant and commitment over comfort. In the past, we've sometimes had a priority of making sure that individual members felt comfortable with our decisions as a church. We're now called to prioritize decisions that help us live into our sacred covenant and commitment to shared sense of mission. As we are a non-creedal faith, it is our covenant and our mission that we hold in common. That's where we unite to work as a strong force for good in the world. Making sure no one feels too emotionally challenged could just keep us stuck on the sidelines. And my friends, stuck is not where we want to aim to be. The Commission on Institutional Change report addresses the deep and historic culture of Unitarian Universalist congregations. Now, many of us love our UU culture. Our traditional UU culture works great for people who look just like me. That's probably because it was created by people just like some of my ancestors. But there are ways that UU culture pushes some people to the margins of our communities rather than welcoming them in fully. The way we talk about education as key to true enlightenment, that could easily make someone who never finished high school feel very unwelcome and like this is just not the place for them. There's a way that our congregational meetings with Robert's Rules of Order disadvantage the silent and powerless and advantage the dominant culture. We sometimes talk about how we are above racism in our congregations because we are the faith of so many of the famous abolitionists, and a number of our leaders were able to march in Selma and in Washington. I bet you have civil rights pioneers right here in this Seattle congregation. It's good and fine that we're proud of this part of our heritage. But this does not give us a free pass as a faith community. Not all of our UU history around race is so proud. For instance, back in 1912, Egbert Ethelred Brown graduated from Meadville Lombard Theological School and was the first Black minister ordained in our faith. But no Unitarian church in the country would hire him. Not one. And today, in the 21st century, we hear story after story of UUs of color who feel dismissed, tokenized, and belittled by well-meaning UUs who just don't understand the experience of being at the margins. This includes stories of some of our religious professionals, as well as lay people. Oh, change is hard, but we can do it. I know we can. The COVID-19 pandemic provided an important theological lesson for us all. The pandemic showed example after example of our interdependence as people and as communities. If one person with mild symptoms chose to assert their individual freedom and go be in a crowd at a party, the results could be tragic. This winter, a sick man went to work in Southern Oregon, and the result was 300 cases of COVID-19 and 7 COVID deaths. Schools closed down all over the country, not because our children were at high risk for hospitalization, but because the children might bring home the virus to family or other neighbors who were at high risk. People stayed home before vaccinations were found, not just to protect themselves, but protect the most vulnerable in our society. This was a good and a noble thing to do. We can feel proud. We can still feel so proud of this. For many of us, it was a way to live our Unitarian Universalist values. We looked out for the good of the community more than we looked out for our own personal desires. In some ways, the key lesson of the pandemic, they feed right into the new ways of thinking about church that we've been talking about in Unitarian Universalism for a little while now. It has to do with the I versus we approach to our faith. Unitarian Universalists in the 20th century were so proud of individual freedom of faith that was afforded the members. We each were on our own individual search for truth and meaning. And we all got to vote in important decisions in the church. Oh, I just loved that when I was a brand new Unitarian Universalist in the 1980s. And these are still traditions that so many of us hold dear in 2021. But as time goes on, sometimes this approach has become warped into an extreme form of individualism that has hurt us as a faith and undermined our work. Unitarian Universalist minister, the Reverend Cheryl M. Walker, grew up in a fairly restrictive Nation of Islam community as a young girl, and she shares this wisdom with us. She says, individualism is so attractive in the beginning. For many people who felt the heavy yoke of being in a community of faith where they could not fully be who they were, individualism tastes like food they've hungered for. But it's only good when we are starving. When we've had our fill, we look for food that sustains us for the long journey of life. That life-sustaining food could only be found in a community of shared purpose and values, where individualism is affirmed but is not worshipped. Oh, preach it, Reverend Walker. For years, many Unitarian Universalist congregations found themselves teetering on a tightrope, trying to balance the value of strong individualism with the need for a unifying mission and covenant. Teetering like that makes it really hard to be joyful in community, I think. I believe the lessons of the pandemic are helping us bring that debate to a close in many of our churches. We have seen in the world that we are connected to each other's lives and vitality in a way that we cannot escape and cannot ignore. The actions of one can and will have a profound impact on the many. We are all our best when we act in a way that takes the health of the greater community as more important than the desires of any one individual. We are all in this together. One imagining I want to share before the end of my sermon is actually about the pandemic era church we all witnessed this year, when we all became faced with the strange time of COVID-19. This is what I saw. Never would I have thought of the level of dedication, compassion, innovation, and flexibility that I saw in our Unitarian Universalist congregations during this pandemic. When it became clear we needed to stop meeting in person to keep each other safe, we did what we had to do, so often with fine results. Many members who swore they would never do online worship, well, they just girded their loins and found a way to take part in this new medium. So brave. People reached out by phone and email to check on those who were absent. In a large number of congregations, financial giving remained strong as people really understood how important their UU congregation was to the world. It's been truly impressive, I must say. And as we bring this strength and determination with us into the future, I can only imagine what we can do to build a better world. May it be so, my friends, and amen.
Friends, I invite you to stand with me as we sing our closing hymn, number 131, in the gray hymnal. Words here on the screen, "Love Will Guide Us."
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way, on the road
Sarah mentioned some of the changes. Of course, we've withstood and survived victoriously through. Those of you who have been with us for any length of time know that it took years for us to come to the point to decide to upgrade and expand the current plant that we are in. It was dedicated in 1959, and all systems needed upgrading, and so we made the great plunge to do that and studied it and had a capital campaign which was enormously successful, and then thought we would be out of the building for about a year, so we went to the Meadowbrook Community Center here down at the bottom of the hill, and the year turned out to be 18 months, meeting in a gymnasium. I know you all remember that fondly. Can't wait to get back. You wanted to go to the swimming pool. We were teasing that we would have mass baptisms in the swimming pool at Meadowbrook, but we got out before that happened. We came back here. The building wasn't fully ready for us. We're in it 3 months, and then the pandemic hit, and now we've been out for, my God, 17 months. So lots of change in this congregation, and I want to re-echo her words to a larger audience to thank you for your resilience and your devotion and your commitment to this community and to our Unitarian Universalist way of being spiritual in the world. We remain strong. We are now entering into a new phase of being. One consultant said, "We knew what we had to do when the pandemic hit, and we did it with courage and lots of learning in the process, but now that we're coming back into what is hopefully a new normal, we're not really quite sure of all the things that we need to do to be a faith community at a new time." That's exciting and terrifying at the same moment, but I'm not worried about it because we walked that road together, and we have proven that we can support each other and go deeper and stronger. Tomorrow morning I leave for Lake Chelan. My head's already there in the lake, in the cold, cold, cold water. I just love it. 5 a.m. swim, 12 o'clock swim, 6 o'clock swim, and a 9 o'clock swim. And that's the regimen that I follow when I go out to Lake Chelan with my family. So I'll be gone a bit and back in briefly in August, and then get ready for Labor Day weekend and a new year for University Unitarian Church. I want to thank you for your support, for your affection, and your commitment. It means a great deal to me and to my family and to our staff. If you see God, may God be with you. If you embrace life, may life return your affection. If you seek a way, may a path be found, and the courage and wisdom and companionship to take it step by step. It is a wonderful life. Amen.